Hi, I'm Ven. Welcome to my book corner. This is a book tag video for you today. This is the banned books tag, originally created by Miss Peepers-Reading-Corner. A massive thank you to Aaron over at Aaron Hook and Nicole over at Nicole's Bookish Nook for tagging me in this one. Super quick prompts, this one. First off, though, we need to specify what we mean by banned books. So, generally speaking, banned books can mean a couple of different things. Number one, it can be books that are banned in certain countries, so you can't purchase them through any legal means. So that is the actual definition in itself, really, of a banned book. You can't get it. B, it's a book that has been banned and gone out of print, and there are a few examples of that. Number three, however, and this tends to be where it quite often applies, this is a book that has been publicly challenged, thus leading it to be removed from a library system within a state or a country. A lot of the focus of this is on the US, where book banning is becoming an increasing concern. I will link down below the American Library Association website, so you can go check them out. They do a load of work around banned and challenged books as well. Well worth a shout out for that. But quite a lot of the books that you get seen as banned books, you can actually still purchase in said country, but you can't get them through the library system. So, be that public library or school library. Now, that being said, this is a super quick tag, so we'll start with number one. Do you intentionally read banned books? Why or why not? So, I did the 24 in 24 banned books challenge last year. Had great fun with it. Read some amazing books that I probably wouldn't have read otherwise. But as a rule of thumb, I don't go out of my way to read banned books. And that's for no particular reason other than I just pick up books that I find interesting to read. Also, in the UK, it is less of an obvious concern, although we will get onto that a little bit later on. And also the library system in the UK is falling apart, to be honest, so that's another thing entirely as well. But I don't necessarily go out of my way to read it. Now, sometimes, however, I'll see someone kicking up a fuss about a banned book, and it'll pique my interest, and I'll go and look into that book, and if I'm interested in reading the book, then I will do. But I don't specifically go, that's banned, I'm going to read it. It'll be, that's banned, is it interesting? Okay, it is. Now I'll read it. Number two, tell us about your favourite banned books. 1984 is one which is really, really well known. I've done a video on it. I was on Agitation August over at Margaret Pennard's channel as well. Link to her channel down below as well. The one I'm going to shout out, however, is called Flamer. So this is a graphic novel by Mike Curato. I will leave my review up above if you want to check it out. And this covers Aiden Navarro's time away at summer camp. Aiden Navarro is a teenager going through a period of self-discovery, beginning to get romantic feelings for another boy. It's from quite a religious household, so we've got a lot of religious guilt, so that sort of plays into their sexuality. There's a load of bullying going on. It looks at the psychological effects of that, of the bullying. It touched on toxic masculinity, especially in male exclusive friend groups at a young age as well, and goes into sort of all the horrific thoughts that go through this young man's mind as he's confused by what his religion has taught him, what he's actually feeling, reaches out to his best friend, and that doesn't quite go as he expects it to go. And it's a really, really powerful graphic novel that really, really resonated with me. It's set in the 90s when I was a teenager. I'm a comparable age to the main character, or would be at the time, I should say. And I think this is a really, really powerful book. I think this is well worth people giving a look if they haven't already. That's Flamer by Mike Curato. One of my books of last year. Yeah, shocking in places as well, just to say that. Number three, share a story about book banning. Okay, so I'm going to sort of sideways this a little bit, and this is more potentially about book censorship. It depends on your take on age gating of books with this. So, first off, I am a parent. I have 3 kids. They range from, as of right now, 21 down to 11. And a friend of mine in work has a daughter who is in high school, British high school. So that's from 11 to 16. And their daughter's really, really got into reading Heartstopper. And they've read books 1, 2, and 3, but they can't get books 4 and 5 at the school library because they contain unsuitable material according to the school, which I find interesting because after being told this, I came home and flipped through book 4 of Heartstopper, and I'm not sure I agree, to be honest, due to the fact it's talking about kids of the right age group that be reading it, and things that young people do go through. It's important that young people can read about things like this. And then when they tried to get it from the public library, it did require a letter of consent from the parent. Now, there is an argument to be made for age-appropriate reading. I do concede that. Judging by the age of the person who was requesting the book, from my personal standpoint as a parent, and to be fair, the parent as well, my colleague, was on the same page as this. They had no issue with them reading the book, and I'd have no issue with any of my kids reading the book either. Does it deal with some dark themes? Yes. Are these themes pertinent to the age group it's aimed at? Also, yes. So it's all about context, and these books, in context, it works. Nothing there is gratuitous. And I have seen a few reports here in the UK over the last few months of increasing pressure on libraries from certain political groups to censor their selection in the libraries. Now, I've not done too much digging into it as of yet. As I said earlier in the video, the UK library system has been heavily defunded over the last 10 to 15 years. So the selection isn't what it was anyway, and they have to be a little bit more careful on the books that they pick anyway, just from a standpoint of getting people through the door. But hearing about that worries me slightly. But that will lead into number 5 in a minute. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Number 4, which book would you memorize to save it from the censors? For example, Fahrenheit 451. So, I have a bad memory, so I wouldn't memorize anything. I think it's more important to take the learnings from the book rather than remember it by rote, because sometimes people misremember and it takes the context away, and you need to get the context right for a lot of the books that have been banned. And I think there's certain sort of messaging in books that needs to be preserved. I don't necessarily think memorizing a book is the way to do it. There's other ways to save books, especially right now in the digital space. Can't purge everything, just saying. So what I would say with this is buy the books, download the books, keep files of the books. Remember the quotes that really encapsulate what the book is about. Would I memorize anything to save it from the censors? No. I think of all the banned books that I've read, I think 1984 is probably the one. Well, that may be because right now it feels quite timely. But I don't think there's one book that I would necessarily memorize, because you can always just rewrite it in a different guise. And for a while, it will still get past the censors until someone catches up, and then it'll get recycled and rewritten again. Now, you can dilute the messaging doing that, but you never quite manage. You can't really kill an idea. Not really. For good and bad. So, number 5, are there any books that challenge your opinions on book banning? Okay, I don't believe a book should be banned. First off, I think every book should be available to read. Now, on saying that, there are certain considerations that do need to be made. Suitability of age is one of the big ones. Because, realistically, there's some things in some books that you don't want an 8-year-old to read. And part of that comes down to the emotional age of the reader. Part of that comes down to what's in the book, and part of that actually comes down realistically to the parent, because realistically, parents are the guardians of their kids to a certain age, and whilst there needs to be some leeway there, in many ways, especially in the early years, parents should have the last say. Now, on saying that, I do think that books have a major issue around age gating, because nearly every other form of media has age gating on it. Even comics have age ratings on them. Comics do. Certain magazines do. I remember when I was growing up, gaming magazines used to be 18 plus, and still are if they still physically sell them. That is. I don't know. I've not bought a magazine in a long time. You could buy a book for the same price. I've just totally lost where I was up to. Yeah, age gating, right. Films obviously do, video games do. So pretty much all other forms of media have an age rating system, and books don't. And it gets more confusing when you look at the category of YA, because at one point, at least here in the UK, you used to have your different age gatings, which was basically your picture books, 0 to 1 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 12. Then you had teen, then you had YA, and teen has vanished, and it's now all YA. And YA covers quite a wide array of books, and some books that you find in YA are not suitable for a 13-year-old, really, with some of the things that they cover, in my opinion. Of course, again, depends on the 13-year-old, just to be clear. So I think books should be available at the library. I think there's an argument that there should be some controls there in terms of age. And, there's some books that necessarily you don't want to have on your shelf, Nicole gave a brilliant example of Mein Kampf. This is a really important historical document that people that are studying that time period in particular, should have access to. Now, if this was displayed pride of place on someone's shelf, I would have concerns. But it's an important document of its time that can help inform learnings. And, to me, that's important. And, the other thing is, if you force something underground and you ban it and you hide it, it's like anything that you just push away. It makes it, first of all, more desirable. And also, because you pushed it to the fringes of legality, there's that thrill level of people wanting to read it. And you then end up with an underground movement for potentially some of the texts that some people would see as more problematic. And the problem is, when you turn something into a pariah or a martyr, it naturally builds up a movement around it. And it's a lot harder to challenge a movement that's in the dark than it is when you can be open and speak about it. And this touches on, again, something that Nicole said. We're in a period of time where we no longer have discussions, we just have mudslinging. Be that in politics, in worldview, just in religion, in everything. It's all about winning the argument now and not having a conversation. And I think if you start banning books or any sort of media, really, now there are exceptions to this, but if you start banning things and pushing them to the outside, you can't have that conversation anymore. And it actually does a disservice to people's education as people to do that, and it makes it hard to challenge because it creates almost a moral superiority. And then you end up in a situation where you're just saying, they're just stupid. And look where that goes. Not great. But anyway, mild rant over. That is my banned books tag. Thank you so much for watching and putting up with my mild ranting. Prompt 6 is tag some people. I'm just going to throw this out there. I know a lot of people have already done this one. So if you haven't done this one and you're interested in doing it, consider yourself tagged and let me know in the comments what your favourite banned book is as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all very soon.